My name is Christopher Peter and welcome to the Christopher Peter Review. I am the political economist, investor, and podcaster behind the original content on the Christopher Peter Review, where I aim to find ideas that can create the greatest amount of good for the greatest number of people. In this episode, I am going to discuss the economy of sports and why it is the best business in the world. Maybe the only industry where you actually want to watch the product that you produce. I will also discuss recent current events in this space. Let us begin another episode of the Christopher Peter Review. Since the dawn of time, societies placed a high value on athletics. History shows the ancient Greeks, who founded the Olympics, valued competition and sport. The Roman Empire held games to entertain communities with great spectacles where not all athletes made it out in one piece. Sports entertainment came much later. Sports are a vital institution in any society. Not just in the United States of America, but across the globe. There is no business like the sports business. In America, we have found ways to commercialize the institution into the largest sports market in the world. But, globally, sports are thriving in many markets as well. Or at least the top performers are prospering. Successful industries or individual organizations thrive for many reasons. One of the main reasons is because they serve an important function for the individual consumer or business consumers. Another is because the business or industry connects with consumers beyond the transactional relationship typical of many business types. The consumer needs the products or services beyond functionality. First, I believe that sports provide something irreplaceable in our daily lives. Americans work hard. No other nation puts in the work hours we do. At the same time, workers need to decompress, relax, and shift their mind to something other than deadlines, projects, and budgets. That is where sports plays a vital role in daily life. For instance, I remember at the beginning of my professional career, I worked long hours and had a significantly long commute as well. But, what helped me cope with the situation was being able to reach home with enough time to catch the Phillies game, many times of which I would begin listening on the radio. For the 3 or so hours, I did not have to think about what I had to do the next day, what work I took home, what traffic might be like, or what weather would extend the drive. I could enjoy a game that night and cheer for my favorite baseball team, which was about to win 5 division titles, 2 pennants, and our second World Series. Baseball was my nightly escape for much of the time. Even when I was preparing to take the GMAT exam, I could have it on in the background to give me enough noise to keep me focused after the grueling work days. In the morning, I could enjoy the morning show commentary discussing the details of the game that the hosts wanted to over-obsess about. For many people, sports provide an escape from realities of life. A needed separation before dealing with the issues with one's significant other, the kids, the home, and other areas of life that are necessary annoyances. Sports is a dynamic staple of American life. It is a distraction from the reality of life, good or bad. It is a reminder of our youth and what our hopes and dreams used to be. Sports also connect us with each other, creating a fraternity built on a bond not on prolonged exposure, but on common goal, love, and hope. Everyone needs that escape. For some people, it is reading a book, scrolling through social media, watching a movie or show, or vegging out listening to the radio. But sports are in the moment. Those other escapes can be paused or put down momentarily, but an inconvenient bathroom break can make you miss something that is less impactful on a replay. Someone once asked me why people find sports interesting and why people can watch something for up to 4 hours. Admittedly, that person was not a sports fan and did not play a sport growing up. So it did not make much sense. If he did play a sport, he would understand the appreciation you have when watching others do something you know how to do, but they can do it exponentially better than you and most other people. The people we watch play these games are truly the elite. I believe that is what makes us loyal fans. At some point, we realized we could not do this game for a living, but these individuals can and do things we could not imagine doing. For me, I was a little leaguer for a few years in my youth. Pretty good slugger during my last couple seasons. But, I knew my talent was not meant for baseball since the sport required more than going feast or famine at the plate and field. After seeing the explosive growth of the contracts, I wish I was better at it. Many sports fans have that connection with their favorite sports. They understand what the players are attempting to do on the field and possibly empathize with them. Sometimes we put ourselves in their shoes and try to apply their talents with what we know is the technical aspect of the game. Some friends of mine who are more baseball fanatics than me sometimes act like amateur commentators when we watch games. In all fairness, I lean back on my tennis days from high school when I watch tennis matches and try to coach the talents through my television screen. Now, I know that my favorite sport is football. I must be consistent with the content that I have put out there. If you heard my Super Bowl pick episode, It was one of the first things I said. While I love my Phillies, Sixers, Flyers, and Union, my favorite sports team is the Philadelphia Eagles. Football is my favorite and first sport to watch since I was very young. Despite not playing it outside of pickup games during school or with friends. Now, in Philly, we love our sports and can get excited about all of them. In many other areas, outside of Philly or New York, the only real passionate fans are football fans. When I go to Milwaukee, they seem to love the Bucks, but the passion for the Packers is on a whole different level. Like soccer in many nations, there is a community in football. For instance, I do not reside anymore in the Philly area, but I still am able to connect with my fellow Eagles fans through the communities available in the New York area. One bar in particular, Mulligan's on 1st in Hoboken, New Jersey, is a great place for Eagles fans in the northern New Jersey area to watch games with fellow Birds fans and cheer for our team. Interestingly, one of my experiences was seeing a person kind of recklessly walking around the bar and not surprisingly bump into another man, who just happened to be much taller, larger, and obviously stronger than him. We all have seen these incidents turn into a violent lesson of personal space. Instead, the rather large man turned and said if any other day it could have been a different outcome, and handed the offending party a beer from his bucket while grabbing one for himself. While many people have a stereotype about Eagles fans, we have a community even outside of the city of brotherly love. And fans across the NFL have these communities that help create brand loyalty for these giants of the sports industry. So it should not be surprising that the most of the biggest sports franchises in the world are the NFL teams and global soccer giants like Real Madrid, Manchester United, Barcelona, Manchester City, and Liverpool, to name a few. See, I made sure to include the rivals to not spite one side of the derbies or the other. But these communities of sports fans create value. The combined value of the 50 teams making up the Forbes top franchises list is reportedly over $250 billion. In America, the sports industry alone is valued at over $70 billion, making it the largest in the world. That is great value. And the sports franchises are truly the only businesses that seems to have consistent skyrocketing growth. Despite all the concerns over how long networks will continue to pay the large contracts for sports content, the industry continues to grow massively each and every year like no other. Speaking of television money, I am not sure there is a near future stop in regards to how prosperous these deals will continue to be. Because live sports is the most reliable content available for television networks. Even for sports entertainment, the value for those deals are growing because sports and sports entertainment are events that are not better when binged watched or watched on your phone. Yes, it is a great Sunday if you can do nothing but come home from church and watch nothing but football. But viewers do not wait for sports to go on their preferred streaming service before they watch it. Even streaming services want a piece of the action and are paying for it. Television networks love it. Advertisers want to be associated with it. Corporations and businesses love sponsoring it and taking clients to events. And sports make plenty of money for ancillary industries as well. Like many big industries, sports has ancillary industries that support it and their consumers. Consider how many food establishments are directly impacted by the needs of these sports communities. Food vendors in the stadiums provide concessions. Food establishments in the vicinity of each game hosting crowds watching the games. Even local takeout places for people watching at home. Also, the agriculture industry that not only provides the food and beverages, but also grows the turf that players compete on. And then there are the health systems that address player injuries, and suppliers of merchandise, in-stadium services, and a host of other complementary needs for you to enjoy sports. Sports have a profound impact on our economy. So the next time that someone questions you for watching too much football, tell them you are being an economic patriot and doing it for the love of your country. Now, let us bring Jennifer into our discussion. Jennifer is also a sports fan and fan of Philly teams. So she has good taste.
Yes, I'm a fan of Philly sports. This year has been a real challenging time to be a Philly sports fan. Let us take a moment to recall our recent history. After the Phillies surrendered a lead in the World Series to fall to the Astros, the Eagles lost by 3 once again in the Super Bowl. The Flyers left no doubt about their season. Then the Sixers only needed one more win to advance to the conference finals before dropping 2 in a row. Then the Phillies surrendered another series lead and the Eagles surrounded a 2-game division lead. The Sixers look better this year, but the Celtics and Bucks are much improved as well. The Flyers are doing pretty well compared to expectations. The Phillies will be in a league where the Dodgers spend $1 billion on 2 players. And the Eagles will need to revamp their assistant coaches. A tough time for us fans. But it also is a tough time to be a Patriots fan or Seahawks fan. The last of the pillars of the Patriots way is no longer running the show in New England. The best coach Seattle ever had was pushed out by non-football people. And then the greatest college football coach of all time also decided it was time to hang it up after a season where he made the college football playoffs. What do you make of the sudden but somewhat expected change in coaching through the sport of football?
Well, the Patriots separating from Belichick was somewhat anticipated because of the trajectory of the team. Seattle seemed somewhat stale despite making a minor playoff run last season. But I thought maybe one more season was fair. Bill Belichick is the greatest coach in the history of the NFL regardless of whether he passes Shula or not. Many people want to advance the narrative that all the credit should go to Brady. But the reality is that their partnership was the result of both of them. And Belichick was the architect of the dominant defenses that made them a consistent contender. Hopefully, he does pass Shula. Nick Saban is a great coach who did what so many struggle to do. Revive a legendary program and lift it to new heights. Saban won the last 6 titles for the legendary program, but it was revered before he ever stepped foot on campus. It seems like many coaches struggle with adding the next chapters in the book of historic programs. But Saban did just that in a manner that went beyond reasonable expectations. He was good in LSU, all right in the NFL with the Dolphins, but historically great at Alabama. I think the 6 titles are special compared to previous ones won by legendary coach Bear Bryant and others. Back in the day, college football champions were crowned based on the votes from writers. These writers were well informed, but hard to really say a team is a champion if it never played the other undefeated teams or contenders. Especially in a regional sport. When it was a regional sport, Saban won his 6 of his 7 on the field. The LSU one is kind of the exception. But Alabama was the symbol of consistency and excellence throughout his time at Tuscaloosa. Why now? Some say the NIL. In the 2 seasons with NIL being prominent in the sport, Alabama did fairly well in spite of not winning a title. A bad snap ended their season in overtime. In a 12-team playoff, there is no doubt Alabama would have been in the mix. But as the game changes with realignment, sometimes it is time to move on. But, I feel Saban would have adjusted like he did so many times before. The game of football moves on, but we should acknowledge greatness when we see it right in front of us. Belichick will probably coach elsewhere. Who knows what will happen to Pete Carroll, who was replaced by Belichick and replaced Saban at Ohio State. But, Saban will not roam the sidelines anymore, it strongly appears.
Now, onto his final opponent. The Michigan Wolverines won the national championship, defeating Alabama on their way to the title. Now, the head coach on the defeated side will replace Saban. The Wolverines faced so much scrutiny because of the sign-stealing scandal Connor Stalions is accused of coordinating. That John Harbaugh was suspended for despite not knowing anything about it. While the scandal may still be under review by the NCAA, should the Wolverines feel vindicated?
The suspension of John Harbaugh was done by the Big Ten. So, until the NCAA announces its rulings or decides the scandal is not a big deal, one can assume there is a possibility that championship will be vacated as well as the wins. Sure, you cannot erase the memories. But the season essentially becomes an extended practice if that happens. As much as Wolverines fans are sticking it in the face of their accusers, it will be very much deflating if the championship is vacated. Not enough information known about additional punishments at this point. I did not think it was a good look to reincorporate Connor Stalions back in the fold. That was a bit too far.
I agree. There are people that corroborate his role in the scandal. The controversial aspect was Harbaugh taking the blame when he did not know what Connor Stalions was doing. But there was clear evidence of inappropriate behavior, whether it helped or not. And there is reason to believe the info or helpful material was already gained before it was stopped. Who really knows at this point? The scandal provided content for sports media in a season where college football finally received more than a passing glance. In addition to the scandal, the narrative generators on ESPN and FS1 obsessed greatly about the arrival of Deion Sanders to Colorado. Usually, the networks avoid college football until the playoffs. As you can tell, I am not the biggest fan of the 2 main sports networks. But they do serve a purpose and help make sports the economic giant it is.
Overall, I think the national sports networks are important. But, I feel that the best sports coverage is done by local reporters and content creators who are more closely tied to the teams. Their focus is on the teams that you actually care about and follow. Watching the national channels, you may get a few seconds about the ongoings of your team. Or if your team is outperforming or underperforming, you may get nauseated coverage that is more emotional retort than any factual debate of what actually is going on in the building. So many national pundits wrote off Buffalo from making the playoffs, professing that the team is done and cannot get back in the playoff race. Now, they are the number 2 seed in the AFC. So it is not always expert opinion that is reflected but over-analysis of the moment. But a useful discussion. You just have to take it for what it is worth to you.
Also, the narratives they offer are just extreme and not really a comprehensive analysis of all possible outcomes. When they are not indoctrinating the audience, they are giving obsessive commentary myopically focused on a message that does not always hold true or is a generalization being sold as irrefutable dogma. Consider what these pundits say about team building. The common narrative is that you cannot make the playoffs without an established star quarterback as well as an offensive-minded, innovative head coach. While that does seem to be the prevailing approach, not many teams are able to achieve that. But there are still 14 playoff spots that need to be filled. This year we have 2 or 3 teams that enter the playoffs without that standard and a couple of teams sitting at home. I might add the Browns to the mix since their supposed star quarterback has not played up to his past potential and the backups contributed greatly to their playoff run.
To get a narrative to stick, it must be repeated multiple times, not necessarily proven to hold numerous times. You must have an established quarterback and an offensive genius coach to make the playoffs, but there are other ways to find success in this industry. For most teams, they will need to find an alternate solution because they do not currently possess either, or the quarterback and coach pairing is still developing. We all agree that star quarterbacks are hard to find and few if any are available in one draft, while some current stars are injured or declining out of the star quarterback class. So you either find a different path to the playoffs or just forfeit a year of the player's limited career time. This is why I love that the Pittsburgh Steelers made the playoffs and had another winning record. Mike Tomlin has never had a losing season in his career. I will say it again. Mike Tomlin has never had a losing season in his career. Having a star quarterback is a good formula to field a successful team. Having an innovative coach is also a good staple. My Philadelphia Eagles take this approach. But I do appreciate when teams realize there are more ways to get to where you want to be if you cannot go the road most traveled. Also, I think having a good and innovative coach is important, not just an offensive-minded coach. Look at the Texans.
Sports is the ultimate meritocracy. Everything is earned and nothing is handed to anyone. Not the players, coaches, owners, or fans. And the results are clear and irrefutable. If you decide to buck the trend of team building or recruiting, the results are what they are. You must accept the result as a validation of your strategy, good or bad. Not like many businesses where you can try to craft a success story to cover for what is normally considered industry standard. For teams that take the alternative paths in team development, the fact teams like the Steelers and Texans making the playoffs without the prototypical path validates that these teams are well-run, and not just another cookie-cutter organization.
I think well-run organizations are able to find success in different ways because they look beyond the day-to-day and understand what assets and liabilities exist in their business. People who are self-aware with themselves or their organizations are able to know the gaps that exists, probability of closing those gaps in a timely manner, and how to achieve the same end goal. Organizations that use creative license to try to define success in a manner that is not industry standard are ones that probably realizes they are not up to par. For example, I worked with a procurement department that would emphasize cost avoidance in place of savings to try to make the case for its strategy. Cost avoidance was somewhat beneficial for ad hoc reporting, but it does not really do much for the actual financial effect of operations. In sports, you win or you lose. If you make the playoffs, then your strategy was effective and you can build on it. If you win the championship, then your strategy is the industry standard and you are a top performer. Despite the effort and time invested, the results are irrefutable and define your performance. A big thank you to all of you in the audience. Your viewership is appreciated and valued. Please follow the Christopher Peter Review on social media and continue to visit www.crcreview.com for new episodes. Thank you once again. Until next time.